Chapter 31. Almost escaped. Impel Down, Level 1 Monitoring Room. 4 guards responsible for monitoring today were playing cards, bored out of their minds. How unlucky, of all days it's us stuck in the monitoring room, missing the feast. Director Figo threw for everyone, a newly recruited guard complained, looking dejected. An experienced guard laughed at him, "Don't worry. You don't know the director well. He's an incredibly thoughtful man and won't forget about us. Trust me, later on, people will envy us because the director will definitely give us an exclusive feast later." Really? The director is great. By the way, is this monitoring room really necessary? All the prisoners are locked up. It's been 8 years, and the surveillance den Mushi has never caught any incident. No incidents are a good thing, right? The experienced guard discarded 2 cards and glanced at the surveillance screens, his face suddenly pale. How is this possible? Something big has happened. He lunged for the den Mushi, "Director. Warden Kimchi. There's an unknown breakout in level 5, with 4 prisoners escaping towards level 4. Oh no, Director Figo is stopping them. He needs backup. He needs backup." As the message spread through the den Mushi, all guards within communication range turned pale. Kimchi, pushing a stone block in the training area after the feast, dropped it and rushed towards the guards' passageway. At the stairs between level 5 and level 4 of Impel Down, 4 prisoners who had broken their chains were half surrounding Figo, murderous intent in their eyes. Without any words or threats, fearing more guards might encircle them, the 4 pirates exchanged a glance and simultaneously lunged at Figo, eyeing the keyring at his waist. Having been imprisoned together for a long time, 7 years of confinement hadn't dulled their ferocity. Although they often looked sickly due to hunger, they could still unleash their power when needed, especially after having some meat. Die! Bang! 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 Clang! 3 fists and an arm shaped like a drill all struck Figo. The fierce expressions on the pirates' faces vanished instantly, replaced by shock and horror. His entire body covered in a dark, metallic sheen, exuding a powerful, intimidating aura, Figo, enveloped in armament haki, glanced down at the drill-shaped arm, a smile playing on his lips. He reached out with both arms, grabbing the 4 escaping prisoners. Accompanied by the sickening sound of bones grinding and screams, the stairwell returned to silence. Alert cancelled! Alert cancelled! The 4 prisoners were taken down by Director Figo in one move. No backup needed. Kimchi, who had just reached the stairwell, skidded to a halt upon hearing the message from the den Mushi. He stood there speechless momentarily, then shook his head and returned to the training area, feeling like he had been played. The brief chaos in Impel Down was quickly quelled. One guard even pointed at the surveillance den Mushi, laughing, "Idiot! You made us all panic for nothing. Just 4 prisoners, how could Director Figo need backup for that?" Behind the surveillance den Mushi, the experienced guard looked ashamed and shouted at the device. "Director Figo is the strongest." "Of course he is," someone responded. "Director Figo is the strongest." Soon, the shouts merged into a chorus. Compared to the excited guards, the prisoners in level 5 felt as if they had lost a family member as they watched Figo drag 2 limp prisoners back to their cells. Only Sister Carmel seemed indifferent. Having had hope only to be plunged into despair, they felt it would have been better if they had never had hope in the first place. Damn it! Useless trash! They could only curse and berate the 4 failed escapees. Such a rare chance after so many years. If it were me, I would have reached the Impel Down gate by now. Useless! All of them! Figo ignored them, locking up the 4 escaped prisoners and feeling joy at the notifications in his mind. Prisoner, Duhanam. Level, SR3. Status, incarcerated. Crime Index, 55. Capture participation, 3% and 35%. Reward, Observation Haki plus 63 plus 735, 3955, 3rd level mid observation Haki. Event reward, Physique plus 63 plus 735, 13107, 4th level monster. As expected, even deliberately letting prisoners escape to recapture them could supplement capture participation and event rewards. However, why was the supplement only 35% and not 50% like with the 7 giants? To make the escape more realistic, he had even provided a piece of sea king meat. What was missing? Figo thought about Gerard. Dragging him from the sea had also given 35%. Comparing the two cases with the giants, Figo started to have some guesses. The giants had completely escaped. They could have gone anywhere if he hadn't recaptured them, so the supplement was 50%. Though Gerard had jumped into the sea and could commit suicide, he was relatively free but still chained and imprisoned. The same went for the prisoners in Impel Down. Though they had escaped their chains, they were still within the underwater prison. Escaped, but not fully escaped? This way, it would only be 35%. Figo couldn't let them completely escape Impel Down. But it didn't matter. If I let them escape a second time and recapture them, can I get a second supplement? If so, it might be 17.5% participation next time? Third time 8.75%? This way, I can eventually get everyone's capture participation to over 70%. Calculating in his mind, Figo looked at the heavily injured prisoners back in their cells and temporarily dismissed the idea of letting them out again to test. They couldn't even run now. So. He turned and looked at the cursing prisoners, smirking, "You think you could escape if it were you? Fools, would you even dare attempt to escape with just a key?" Clang! He tossed a key onto the ground. "A key for cells 17 to 20. Come on, let's play a game. I'll wait for you idiots at the stairwell. Kill me, and you regain your freedom. Dare to try?" Figo taunted. The noise from the prisoners stopped instantly, staring at Figo. Was this bastard serious? "Oh, and by the way," Figo remembered, looking at the hopeful Sister Carmel, "you did well earlier, so I'll reward you with a week of no meals." The nun froze. "Ha ha ha ha," the prisoners burst into laughter. "Idiot! Did you think this demon would appreciate your good behavior and take care of you? Serves you right." The nun had thoroughly angered them. The laughter continued until Figo disappeared from their sight. Staring at the key on the ground, the fifth level fell silent again. "Hey, you four, why were you defeated so quickly?" a prisoner asked. Despite the mockery, they were all big-name pirates. Seeing four of their own fail so fast, they couldn't believe it was easy to take down Figo. Lying on the ground, Duhanam opened his mouth. In that moment, his feelings were complicated. Should he tell the truth? Monsters capable of covering their entire body in armament haki are rare even in the New World. Without weapons, no four-man team could defeat Figo. Figo guarding the only stairwell cut off any chance of deter. They would have to run towards the sixth-level passage, but without keys to free those prisoners, what was the point? Let the sixth-level inmates see how badly Figo beat them? To mock them? We're just careless. No way, tired of trying. Let it all end. If I die, we all die. Chapter 32. Making a fuss. A few days later, a large ship from the world government docked at the Level 0 platform of Impel Down. The new deputy director of Impel Down, Rupladu, and 20 new guards who had previously served with the Red Line garrison disembarked from the ship. While Impel Down's strength was boosted, the welcoming guards weren't particularly happy. Previously, they had all been Navy men with a Navy spirit, and the addition of people from the world government sparked concerns about whether they would get along or cause trouble. Among them, Kimchi, whose status had dropped yet another notch, was the most affected. Since Ledoux stepped off the ship, Kimchi had been observing him sideways. With his skinny frame, pale skin, and frail appearance, accompanied by that fake smile, he seemed like a hypocrite. "This must be Chief Warden Kimchi, right? Hello, I'm Ledoux. I'll be in your care from now on, haha." Ledoux extended his hand to Kimchi after greeting Figo. Kimchi was taken aback. "Sir." Ledoux smiled, "According to the orders of the 5 elders, my position as deputy director is merely a formality. From now on, Director Figo will still be in charge, and you, Chief Warden Kimchi, will be second in command. I will follow your commands." Kimchi was stunned, then his expression suddenly turned enthusiastic as he shook Ledoux's hand. "Is that so? You're too kind. I'll take good care of you." This new deputy director seemed pretty decent, with a sincere and kind smile. Figo, observing Kimchi's transformation, could only chuckle inwardly. So, the world government is taking this route. It makes sense. Sending a deputy director to directly compete with him was unlikely. In this world where strength ruled, the world government certainly had stronger individuals who could defeat Figo, but such people were highly valued and wouldn't be casually assigned to Impel Down. Moreover, given Figo's growth, you wouldn't send someone less than Admiral level strength to restrain him. If the deputy director couldn't suppress Figo, he couldn't simply bully Kimchi. Figo would certainly back Kimchi, turning Impel Down into a chaotic mess. Hence, they sent a social butterfly. As expected, Ladou's orders were to get along with everyone in Impel Down. He didn't need to seize power or compete, just ensure that no one disliked him. He carried 2 Den Mushi capable of directly contacting the 5 elder Mendes bin Saint, one of which he would hand over to Figo, the other belonging to himself. The 20 guards also had their orders. They were responsible for reporting everything. They had to relay all noteworthy information from Impel Down to Mendes bin Saint. Greeting everyone with a smile, Ladou indeed left a positive impression on everyone at Impel Down, smoothly integrating into its system as the new deputy director. After settling into his quarters and changing into his uniform, he began making rounds, introducing himself everywhere. Training area, cafeteria, monitoring room. No need to stand up. Just here to introduce myself. I'm Deputy Director Ladou. Are you, playing cards? Ladou asked the 4 guards, who exchanged glances before affirming. Carry on, carry on. I'm just looking around, Ladou smiled, though inwardly noting it down. Gaston Figo's monitoring room management is inadequate. But these were minor issues, not worth reporting to the 5 elders. Unless a significant event like a jailbreak occurred. Glancing at the surveillance screen, Ladou nearly jumped. What is happening? The experienced guard looked over to see prisoners on level 5 unlocking their cells and stepping out. Deputy Director, they're escaping. Oh, so they are escaping. I thought they were escaping. The experienced guard's calm words left Ladou stunned for a moment before he jumped up. Escaping. The experienced guard said, Deputy Director, no need to make a fuss. You'll understand soon. Make a fuss? You all sit here watching an escape without reporting it and accuse me of making a fuss. Ladou anxiously watched the surveillance feed, seeing the number of escaping prisoners increase to 8, who then gathered and seemingly discussed something before running toward the staircase. Other prisoners' reactions were oddly indifferent, almost too detached. Ladou had no time to ponder that, focusing intently on the 8 prisoners, switching to another surveillance Den Mushi, then witnessing a one-sided beatdown at the stairwell. The fight lasted less than 3 minutes. All 8 escapees were downed. Dumbfounded, Ladou watched Figo drag the 8 back to their cells. He began to understand why the guards were so calm. It seemed to be a special form of punishment, but how dangerous. If Figo were defeated, in this deep-sea prison, everyone would die. No, I must report this to the 5 elders. He rushed back to his quarters, using the special Den Mushi to contact Mendes bin Saint on his first day at Impel Down. Moments later. What is it, Ladou? Have you arrived at Impel Down? Mendes bin Saint asked. Yes, Elder. I must report an issue. Director Gaston Figo uses the deliberate release of level 5 prisoners for punishment and amusement, even releasing 8 billion buried pirates at once. Mendes bin Saint paused for 2 seconds. He planned to use pirate prisoners to kill you. No, not exactly. Ladou hesitated, realizing his own vulnerability. He coughed and said, It seems not, Elder, but before my arrival, there have been many such incidents. But Elder. Then don't make a fuss. Mendes bin Saint said impatiently. This is Figo's method of managing Impel Down, a way to intimidate the pirates. You don't need to interfere. Just 8 level 5 prisoners who must be very weakened after long confinement. If Figo dares release them, there won't be an accident. The Den Mushi clicked off. Ladou's face alternated between green and white. Was I really making a fuss? A month later. Elder. Figo has increased the number of released level 5 prisoners by 4 today, making it 12. He was almost injured. Ladou. Mendes bin Saint's voice came from the Den Mushi again. Stop making a fuss. I didn't send you to Impel Down to monitor Figo's punishment methods. He's an expert in that, no one does it better. I want you to find those who can't endure Impel Down's hardship and can be used as slaves. His methods don't need interference. Ladou was scolded until his face turned pale again. 3 months later. Elder. Figo released a level 6 prisoner today. He's getting more extreme. This is too dangerous. If something goes wrong, Impel Down will be finished. The Den Mushi clicked off. Ladou stared at it, his face expressionless. A year later. Buru buru buru. Ladou's den den mushy rang. Surprised and nervous, he answered it, hearing Mendespin Saint's questioning voice. Ladou. Half a month ago, Gaston Figo simultaneously released 3 level 6 pirates with bounties over 3 billion. The battle caused wall damage, and he had to rest for 2 days. Why didn't you report this? I don't want to hear of such negligence again. The den den mushy clicked off. Feeling the anger of the 5 elders, Ladou's face turned pale once more, and he felt like crying. This is too difficult. It's too hard. It's just 3 level 6 pirates. Why is the elder making such a fuss? Chapter 33. 7 years, the Revolutionary Army. Holy Land Mary Gosa. After hanging up the phone, the 5 elders Mendespin Saint was still fuming. As the highest authority in the world government, he was not one to lose his temper without reason. Indeed, this matter was due to Radu's lack of sensitivity. The problem wasn't about how Figo punished or tortured the prisoners. Instead, it was about recognizing Figo's astonishing strength growth curve from the number of prisoners he released. Unlike the pirates in the 5th level, although the 5th level also held infamous pirates with bounties over 1 billion, with proper military deployment, elite officers in the Navy had a chance to capture them using the naval gunfire advantage. However, facing the pirates in the 6th level, without deploying high-level combat power, without sending vice-admirals or even admirals, any attempt would be futile. They were all strong enough to stand independently in the New World, all skilled in using armament haki and observation haki. A few even had highly effective devil fruits, some of which were awakened. None of them were easy to deal with, and facing 3 at once? The difficulty was far beyond tripling. A year ago, Figo had suffered some injuries while capturing the manipulative Gildikak. Yet now, he had grown to such an extent within just 1 year? Did he not have any growth bottlenecks? Many exceptionally talented Marines reached the rank of Vice Admiral in their 30s but remained Vice Admirals for their entire lives. The Navy had only 3 admirals, not because the world government limited the number to 3, but because each generation had only a few top-tier Marine powerhouses, sometimes even fewer than 3. But looking at Figo's growth trajectory, a year ago, he wasn't even in the top 5 Vice Admirals. Now, he was firmly a candidate for Admiral, and achieving Admiral level strength in a few years was inevitable. And that might not be Figo's end point. What if he acquired a suitable devil fruit? The potential to become the world's strongest. Mendespin Saint murmured. Although Figo had disrupted one of his planned operations, Mendespin Saint wasn't angry. It was of little importance to him. He even appreciated Figo's capabilities displayed in Impel Down and had thoughts of recruiting him. However, there was one matter he couldn't let go of. A year ago, the death of Saint Casselia remained unresolved, and Figo was a suspect. With CP0's intelligence capabilities, they naturally discovered that on the afternoon of the incident, Marine Headquarters Vice Admiral Dog had intended to deploy a ship, which linked them to Mia and Figo, who had visited Dog's house that morning, and then traced back to the real reason behind Gerald's attack on Saint Casselia. Figo had the motive, but not the ability, which was why he was excluded. Yet he couldn't be completely excluded. Too many bizarre things existed in this world. Some people had 2 hearts, some even had 2 heads. It wasn't impossible that Figo possessed some undiscovered peculiarity. Although new recruits undergo thorough physical examinations. Just as Mendespin Saint was tapping his chair while thinking, the door was knocked. A CP0 intelligence officer hurried in, reporting, "Saint Mendespin, we have a suspect in the year-old case of Saint Casselia's murder." 2 days ago, a slave ship en route to the Sabayati archipelago was attacked, and all the slaves were freed. According to surviving crew reports, the attacker was a female swordsman with an unknown devil fruit, capable of growing wings and flying, extremely powerful. Mendespin Saint, where is she headed? Still investigating. Find out as soon as possible. After dismissing the CP0 intelligence officer, Mendespin Saint's lightly furrowed brows relaxed. Could Figo's suspicion be entirely dismissed now? Time passed swiftly like a fleeting horse. In the blink of an eye, another 6 years had flown by. It had been 7 years since Figo returned to Impel Down as the warden, totaling 15 years in the position. Now 35 years old, Figo was training in the Impel Down exercise area, performing headstand exercises not with his hands or his head but with his hair. Each strand of his short black hair stood on end, steadily supporting Figo's nearly 500-pound weight. Due to his giant strength, Time hadn't left many marks on Figo's face, but his height kept increasing without limit. 4 years ago, his height had grown from 250 centimeters to 280 centimeters, making him feel that this matter could no longer be delayed. As a transmigrator, Figo naturally knew about a special ability that could only be tapped after mastering the 6 techniques, known as life return. It allowed the user to freely control their body, internal organs, and hair, which was very effective for the problems he was facing. However, whether this era had not yet developed life return, or it was only circulated in a small range, Figo had to figure it out himself. At that time, his mastery of the 6 techniques had reached a certain level, and after selecting the benefits of the 3 CP9 members, he achieved another breakthrough and, relying on his extraordinary physique, directly pushed through the development of life return. 4 years passed in a flash, and Figo's development had achieved significant results. At least, his height had stopped growing at 280 centimeters. His ears twitched as he heard a guard running from afar, accompanied by the faint sound of a ringing phone snail. His hair, which supported his headstand, slightly bent, then snapped back like a spring, propelling Figo's body upright. "Warden! Warden! You have a call. Is it the 5 elders again?" Figo took the phone snail from the running guard and answered. "Moshi Moshi, this is Figo." "Figo, it's me." The voice on the other end was old, tired, and somewhat distorted. It had been so long since he heard it that Figo paused for 2 seconds before reacting. "Teacher dog. You still recognize your teacher's voice? Young people have good memories, unlike me, always remembering your name wrong." The old man seemed to want to make a joke but lacked the spirit, sighing, "Get ready, Figo, I will arrive at Impel Down in 2 hours to interrogate Laughing Gerald." "Interrogate Gerald?" Figo was stunned, instantly associating this with the surviving Sapphire, the unfortunate yet strong girl he used to occasionally monitor through the prison archive but had less frequently in recent years. Opening the prison archive, he pulled up Gerald's page and activated the event guidance, finding the arrow pointing northwest. "Is that, towards the New World? Could it be that the girl became a pirate after all?" Figo frowned slightly. "What's going on, teacher?" Dog said, 6 years ago, a blind female swordsman began attacking celestial dragons and slave traders' ships, destroying a total of 32 slave ships and freeing over 1,000 slaves to date. Most were sent back to their hometowns, while some strong individuals chose to follow her, gradually expanding into a force that could not be ignored on the seas. She is referred to as the Blind Witch by the world government, with a bounty of 800 million berries. Figo felt a slight shock. A blind female swordsman, as expected. The Navy attempted to capture her twice, and the world government ambushed her 3 times, all detected in advance and avoided. Eventually, the slaves she rescued began calling her saint and, 6 months ago, formed a revolutionary army to overthrow the world government and the celestial dragons. The world government was furious, increasing her bounty to 1.2 billion, breaking the previous record, and appointed me as the person in charge of eradicating the revolutionary army. The revolutionary army? Where did this revolutionary army come from? Figo's first reaction was to wonder if he had caused some butterfly effect. Then he realized that even without him, Gerald would have been imprisoned in Impel Down, perhaps in a worse state. Then he understood that in this world, a revolutionary army could emerge in any generation. The difference was that the world government dismantled every generation's revolutionary army, while the one in later stories had a high chance of success. The revolutionary army. Sapphire. I understand, teacher. Hanging up the phone snail, Figo stood silently for a dozen minutes before turning and walking out. His posture was upright, moving like a mountain. He carried an aura as if no one could defeat him. Chapter 34. The Coward. 2 hours later, Figo greeted Doug's warship as scheduled on Impel Down's Level 0 platform. The 7 years hadn't left many marks on Figo's face, but they had not been as kind for Doug, now 78 years old. His hair had turned completely white, and his once upright posture was slightly bent. However, this shouldn't be the case for a strong practitioner of physical techniques unless he was sick or near the end of his life. Figo could tell that the weight of worries had worn him down. Teacher Doug. The one rushing to support him wasn't Figo but the excited Kimchi. 4 years older than Figo, Kimchi was from an earlier batch of elite recruits and also one of Doug's students. The old man, held by Kimchi, showed a hint of confusion in his eyes. He relaxed only after seeing Figo, who bowed his head in greeting. I thought after 7 years I might not remember what you looked like, Figo, Doug said. He then patted Kimchi's arm and asked, why, do I look like I need someone to help me walk? Ah, no, teacher, Kimchi quickly released his grip. I'm just too excited. I haven't seen you in nearly 20 years. 20 years. Doug took a closer look at Kimchi and suddenly remembered. Oh, I remember you now. You're Kin Gong. Teacher, it's Kimchi. Ah, sorry. The old man apologized readily and laughed heartily. I remember you. You were one of the best in your batch, especially good at Tekai, right, little Kin? Kimchi became even more excited. 14 years ago, it was with Tekai that he faced Figo's sword. Little Kin. Figo suddenly said, Teacher Doug, do you still remember Mia's full name? Mia's full name? Doug immediately stepped back, clearly startled and afraid he wouldn't remember and that Figo would tell Mia. After a few seconds of thought, he glared at Figo, I just have a bad memory, not a bad brain. Figo laughed heartily. Doug also laughed, but soon restrained his laughter, shaking his head. No need to deliberately cheer up this old man. I'm not that fragile yet. Let's take care of business first, Figo, little Kin. All right. Figo and Kimchi escorted Doug into Impel Down and guided him to the interrogation room on the first level. On the way, Figo asked, Teacher, is it confirmed that the Revolutionary Army's saint with a bounty of 1.2 billion is Gerald's sister, Sapphire from the story we heard years ago? How did she surpass the bounty limits of the sea in just a few years? I've corrected you many times before. Although she was a little girl in the story, she is actually the same age as you, 35 this year. Doug shook his head. She's a top talent in the world, just like you. No, purely in terms of talent, she might be even stronger than you. If she had joined the Navy when she was young, she would have undoubtedly become an admiral. Doug said regretfully, but perhaps she wouldn't have grown to her current level without going through those hardships. Several times she escaped ambushes. The world government has confirmed that her observation haki can foresee the future to an extremely rare degree. She also acquired the Logia-type snow fruit, and her abilities have awakened, allowing her to influence the weather on a large scale and fly with wings, making her very difficult to capture. Of course, in terms of personal strength, she probably still falls short of the original 2 Sea Emperors, the Hellish Man with a bounty of 965 million and the Gluttonous King with a bounty of 999 million. But considering her threat and potential, plus the suspicion that she was behind the murder of Saint Casselia 7 years ago, her bounty was exceptionally set at 1.2 billion. Figo's expression stiffened for a moment, leading Doug into the interrogation room. Teacher, can I listen in? Doug nodded. Of course, you're the warden of Impel Down, a position higher than mine. This is your territory. But, little Kin will have to stay out. There are some things better left unknown. Kimchi was left feeling aggrieved outside. Inside the interrogation room, Gerald, who had been extremely tense since being brought in, clenched his fists tightly upon seeing Figo accompany an elderly admiral inside, his sense of foreboding deepening. Doug examined him a few times, then sat down in a chair. You look fatter than your wanted poster, living quite well. 3 meals a day, plenty of food and meat, Figo said. Is that so? Doug said. Nothing to worry about, nothing to take care of, eating well, sleeping soundly. This guy is quite lucky, living much more comfortably than that girl, Sapphire. Clang. In an instant, Gerald stretched the chains binding him to their limit, his eyes bloodshot as a terrifying conqueror's haki emanated from him, and he roared. What happened to Sapphire? Doug didn't even frown. So, you have the potential of a king? Don't bite. Sapphire is fine, at least for now, she is. As Doug recounted the events, the ferocity in Gerald's eyes gradually faded, and he slowly sat back down, feeling as if the world had become unreal. The little girl he once had to care for had unknowingly surpassed all his achievements, becoming someone the world government had to take seriously and be wary of. The highest bounty? And that damn celestial dragon is dead? When? Gerald asked hoarsely. The night you were captured, while returning by sea, he was ambushed and killed, the entire ship sinking. The perpetrator is unknown. Doug replied. Gerald paused, shaking his head. It wasn't Sapphire. She hadn't eaten the snow fruit at that time. That's no longer important. Gerald, the world government has proposed using your public execution to lure the witch into a trap. Do you think Sapphire will come to save you? Doug asked. Leaning against the wall, Figo shifted his position. Gerald once again stretched the chains to their limit, gritting his teeth as he approached Doug, squeezing out a crazed and mocking smile. Ha, so this is the righteous Navy? Are you Navy or dogs of the world government? Using such despicable tactics against her. Bang! Suddenly, Doug punched. His fist, as big as a sandbag, slammed into Gerald's face, spraying blood and sending Gerald crashing into the wall. Fool! Are you seeking our Navy's help with such childish tactics now? Why should we help you, a pirate? You think you love Sapphire? What else have you done for her besides adopting her and saving her life? Sold her to slavers? Got caught and dragged her down? Face reality, laughing Gerald, you're an absolute fool. If you weren't foolish, when you attacked the celestial dragon, you would have been more thorough. You would have been more careful. You wouldn't have arrogantly hidden it from Sapphire. Maybe you would have succeeded, and none of this would have happened. Doug's chest heaved as if his anger was burning, and he panted heavily. It wasn't pure anger but rather frustration and disappointment. His words were somewhat unsuitable for his position. Figo had never seen Admiral Doug show such fierceness and anger before. It seemed unfounded and sudden but managed to scold Gerald, who was bleeding and crumpled on the ground. The interrogation room fell silent for a long time. Gerald finally spoke softly, "Please, kill me. I can see you're different, you're good people. Kill me, or help, give me the means to commit suicide." Doug sat back down. "I wouldn't dare. I'm not a good person, I'm a coward." Gerald looked up at him. "I'm a coward," Doug repeated. 7 years ago, after hearing your story, I mobilized a warship in the afternoon, intending to kill that celestial dragon who stained justice, but ultimately, I didn't have the courage and chose to endure. I've endured all my life. Whenever I felt impulsive, I would tell myself, Doug, you're a Marine. You bear the responsibility of justice. You've trained thousands of Marine recruits. Your actions set an example for them. You can't act recklessly. You developed the 6 techniques. You're over 70. You can't leave a blemish on your record. Your name is meant to be engraved in Marine history. The Navy's role is to maintain the world government's rule. Where there is light, there is darkness. That's true everywhere. You must believe this." He laughed, his back bending even more. "The cheer fruit is really great. Since receiving the order to capture Sapphire, I've been encouraging myself every morning, although she's not a pirate, although she saved many people, many slaves, she might cause greater harm than the great pirates. If left unchecked, the Revolutionary Army will grow more rampant. It will attract schemers and ambitious people, or maybe they already exist, causing chaos that will engulf the world and harm the innocent. So this time, I still have to choose to be a coward, follow the world government's plan, and you'll be taken away, for public execution." Gerald didn't roar or speak again. Become a patron to read chapters ahead of public release and support me, winking face. Chapter 35. Figo, I'll solve it. Doug has never understood the thoughts of his student, Figo. He had been encouraged by him to return to Impel Down back then, and now he was using his own words to refuse him. This was logical and well-reasoned to the extreme, but... You disagree with me taking him away? Yes, I'm the warden of Impel Down after all. But... this... You don't have a higher rank than me. Impel Down is under my authority. I just won't let you take him away. What can you do about it? Figo smiled. Gerald looked up at him in confusion. Doug's lips moved, and after a long time, he sighed, Figo, I know you are a very righteous Marine, but this matter is a direct order from the 5 elders. Even Admiral Oa strongly opposed it, but it didn't change their decision. I'll solve it, Figo said. He took out his personal den mushi from his pocket and dialed the number of Mendispin, one of the 5 elders. I've had a lot of contact with Mendispin in recent years. We're on good terms. I can handle this. Really? Doug didn't believe it. Soon, the call connected, and Mendispin's voice came from the other side. Gaston Figo. It's me, Your Excellency, Figo said to the den mushi. My teacher, Admiral Doug, is here with me now. I heard from him that he received your order to take away Mad Laugh Gerald. What do you want to say? Mendespin's voice became more serious. I do have something to say, Figo continued. I think this is wrong. Can't the vast navy and world government really capture the witch by any other means? Why resort to such despicable tactics? Also, why put Admiral Doug, an elderly man nearly 80 years old, in charge of this operation? Isn't there anyone else in the navy? There was a moment of silence on the other end of the line. Figo continued, give me a chance, Your Excellency. Let me handle it. There's no need for any public execution of Gerald. I'll take charge of the campaign against the Revolutionary Army. I guarantee that within a year, I'll resolve everything. No despicable tactics, and we can eliminate the Revolutionary Army. Won't that better demonstrate the authority of the world government? Doug understood now. Figo intended to take on this mission to relieve his teacher from this difficult position. He felt moved, his eyes moist, and also a bit ashamed. But the 5 elders. Give you a chance. As expected, Mendespin's voice on the other end of the line was already tinged with anger. Figo, recognize your status. Who do you think you are to ask for such a thing? The authority of the world government is not to be challenged. Despicable tactics. Are you in any position to judge? Unsurprisingly, the 5 elders were always arrogant. Doug smiled wryly, reaching out to take Figo's den mushi and explain, not wanting to involve Figo, but Figo directly pressed the den mushi to his mouth and spoke quickly. My status? First and foremost, I'm a human being with a sense of right and wrong, an idiot. The call abruptly ended. Figo spread his hands at Doug, problem solved. Doug was stunned for 2 seconds before his eyes almost popped out of their sockets. Figo, you. Even Gerald was dumbfounded. Even as an outlaw pirate, he knew that on the other end of the den mushi was one of the highest authorities in the world, one of the 5 elders of the world government. Why would he go to such lengths for us? Tried reasoning, didn't work, so now I have to make an effort. Figo remained calm. Sorry, teacher, but I have to inconvenience you a bit now. In the holy land of Mary Gosa. Mendespin stared blankly at the disconnected den mushi for a long time, feeling like he was in a dream. Did that really just happen? The word idiot was spoken in Chinese, which he didn't understand, but he could tell from the tone that it wasn't a good word. Moreover, the tone in the first half of Figo's sentence didn't show him any respect at all. This is, defying my orders? And doing it so forcefully? Mendespin abruptly stood up, an unprecedented surge of anger engulfing him, and he almost crushed the den mushi in his hand without realizing it. Outrageous! Figo! Figo! What are you doing? Inside Impel Down, Kimchi's voice was filled with surprise and confusion. Why did Figo suddenly put Admiral Doug in a cell while interrogating Gerald? Teacher, this is a clean single room. I'll bring you a bed later. You can rest here for 2 days without worrying about anything. Through the bars, Figo spoke to Doug. Doug, who had been placed in a cell by Figo, now understood what Figo intended. He asked gravely, Figo, have you really thought through the consequences of this? Yes, Figo replied firmly. Doug was silent for a few seconds. Then release me. I can't let a kid like you bear all the consequences alone. No, I'm the warden of Impel Down. I make the decisions here. If I say you stay, you stay. Figo shook his head. You are destined to be remembered in naval history. I firmly believe that. This is a student's action, unrelated to the teacher. Doug was speechless, his eyes once again moist. You brat, are you insulting your teacher? What's going on? What's going on? Kimchi was still confused. Figo. Nothing, Kimchi, you don't need to know, and don't secretly release the teacher. In a few days, you might take over my position as warden. I'll feel at ease with you in charge. Figo patted his shoulder. A screen popped up in front of him. Prisoner, Doug. Level, SSR2. Status, incarcerated. Crime Index, 25. Capture participation, 100%. Selectable benefits, 6 powers iron body, teaching, swimming, cooking, 6 powers moonwalk. Character Event 1, to be activated. Character Event 2, not yet activatable. Core Event, not yet activatable. The old man is indeed strong, probably the strongest admiral. If he resisted, it might not be easy to subdue him quickly. Figo thought. The SSR level is a significant milestone, with each step being tough to climb. An SSR2 level Doug Admiral would easily suppress an SSR1 level Gerald. Of course, it wouldn't be quick. People at this level have physiques that are somewhat inhuman. A crime index of 25, on par with Gerald's, was not surprising. A 78-year-old Navy veteran, having participated in hundreds of pirate hunts, couldn't possibly have avoided collateral damage or mistakes. Doing good deeds doesn't cancel out the crime index. If this were the future Akainu with his absolute justice, a crime index over 100 wouldn't be surprising. As the data from the prison archive flashed through Figo's mind, he looked at Doug and said, "Teacher, more than anything else, I'm curious which admiral will come next. Let's see if I can work hard enough to put him in the cell next to you." Kimchi looked horrified. "Figo, what are you saying?" Doug asked, "Are you really confident?" Figo replied, "I'll try my best." Doug asked, "What if 2 admirals come?" Figo paused, then laughed. "Run." Doug remained silent, sighing deeply. "Why go to such lengths? You're still young, Figo. Unlike me, a man nearing the end of his life, you have plenty of time to uphold your justice. Why go to such extremes? So what do we do this time?" Doug was silent for a long time before saying, "Indeed, I am a coward, not as brave as you." Figo said, "I've been in Impel Down for 15 years, lifting weights, transporting prisoners, punishing prisoners, releasing prisoners, training and fighting. My life has been routine for 15 years, not to compromise at this point. So, which admiral will it be?" Chapter 36. At the Pinnacle. Which admiral will come? The Navy has already entered a period of generational change. Among the 3 admirals, the oldest, Mocha, who is of my generation, has been reassigned to the Holy Land to get familiar with the work of commanding the 3 armies and is about to be promoted. Oh. The stubborn old man is despised by the 5 elders, so they wouldn't send him. Of the remaining 2 admirals, one is watching over Hellman Reblis in the New World, who has shown some activity recently. The other one is close to both Oa and me, so he probably won't be sent. So, it's most likely that the one coming is the admiral candidate who is about to succeed Mocha, Raoul. Does the name sound familiar? Raoul wasn't a Navy recruit trained at the headquarters. He was once a famous bounty hunter on the sea and was later personally recruited by Oa. He is also a genius like you and Sapphire. At the age of 24, he was exceptionally promoted to captain. The next year, when Impel Down was first established, he was appointed by Oa as the warden. After a year, he was exceptionally promoted to brigadier general, returning to the headquarters and becoming a major general. 4 years later, he was promoted to vice admiral. Later, he gained the Wind fruit, a Logia-type devil fruit, which further enhanced his abilities. But Oa misjudged him. This guy isn't a suitable successor. For the past few years, he has been frequently interacting with the world government's 5 elders. The world government seems tired of having Oa as the fleet admiral and wants to groom someone more obedient. Oa held him back for 2 years, but now he can't anymore. At 40 years old, Raoul is fully matured in all aspects. Therefore, do not underestimate him just because he is not an official admiral yet. He already possesses the authority of an admiral, and also the power of one. He is recognized by all Marines as the 4th admiral. Of course, if you have the ability, it would be great to beat that bastard, Figo. Standing on the platform of the 0 level of Impel Down, Figo gripped the hilt of his sword, adjusting his state to its peak, while Doug's words echoed in his mind. Suddenly, a gust of wind swept over the sea, blowing Figo's pure black warden's cloak high, fluttering loudly. "Having been in the comm belt for too long, I've almost forgotten what it feels like to be blown by the wind," Figo murmured, drawing his sword to strike. A dazzling white sword aura expanded with his slash, seemingly competing with the sun's light. The entire sea only had this gigantic crescent moon for a moment, overshadowing everything else. Before him, the sea, hundreds of meters deep, split open entirely with this slash. The surging sea water spread to both sides, and this strike cut the incoming fierce wind in half. The fierce wind blowing on him ceased abruptly. Hundreds of meters ahead, the severed wind source transformed, falling into the deep abyss created by Figo's slash. 3 seconds later, a terrifying whirlwind surged from the depths of the sea, creating a whirlpool with a diameter of thousands of meters in the usually calm belt. The displaced seawater was rapidly pushed to the sides, forming massive waves that repeatedly crashed onto the zero-level platform of Impel Down, surging far away. Buried deep in the sea for decades, Impel Down gradually exposed itself completely to the air. At the spot where the two halves of the wind source fell, the sea water was pushed thousands of meters away and held back by an invisible wind wall, unable to flow back. In just half a minute, the surrounding sea turned into land, with the two halves of the wind source converging, forming a person floating a meter above the seabed. Wearing a cyan shirt, white trousers, a white justice cloak fluttering in the wind, a height similar to Figo, grayish-brown pupils, and a slightly pointed chin with no beard. The fourth Admiral, Raoul. Mendespin told me you might resort to violence. I found it hard to believe. Hands in his pockets, Raoul's body swayed slightly with the wind, looking up at Figo on the platform. I remember you, Gaston Figo. When I was in Impel Down, you were just a small fry trying to attract attention through hard work. I didn't expect that after 14 years, you would dare to draw your sword at me. I admire your courage and determination, but the authority of the world government and the five elders is not to be challenged. Surrender, peacefully. Above, Figo looked down at him, smiling silently. You think you can intimidate me? Figo suddenly swung his sword sideways. Another flying slash surged from his blade, slicing through the wind wall on the side, tearing it apart. The sea water rushed back with a roar, and Raoul's eyes flashed with anger and surprise. He quickly pushed forward, summoning another hurricane to push the sea water back. Devil fruit users can't touch sea water. But Figo poised to swing his sword at the other wind wall, making Raoul's face darken. Cursing inwardly, he prepared to ascend, no longer maintaining the landform to avoid endless depletion by Figo. But this time, Figo's swing was empty, no slash emerging from his blade. After the swing, he sheathed his sword. Relax, just a joke. I don't want to fight in the sky either. If you try to run, I really won't have a way to stop you. Figo removed his cloak and casually tossed it aside, then leaped forward. The initial 2 slashes were his last stand for his dream of being a majestic swordsman in white. Against an equally strong opponent, of course, he had to use his best skill. His physique. A dark hue enveloped his fists as he descended, followed by another transformation. A golden aura flowed over the layer of armament haki, moving like water, bringing even more powerful strength. Armament haki, 47,698. Level 5, Superior Armament Haki. Did you manage to make Armament Haki flow? Is this your trump card? Raoul's expression remained indifferent. Making Armament Haki flow to cause true damage is just basic for an Admiral. But no matter how powerful the force, it can't hit the wind. In the ocean center, he couldn't destroy Impel Down's structure. If Figo kept tearing his wind wall, it would be troublesome. Now. Boom. Suddenly, a thunderous noise erupted, completely breaking Raoul's thoughts. As Figo landed, the ground seemed to be hit by a meteorite, cracking and shattering in all directions. Huge stones flew up continuously, and the center resembled an erupting volcano, the resulting shockwave obliterating everything. As the white-hot shockwave rose, Figo's figure seemed to teleport, crossing hundreds of meters in the blink of an eye, appearing beside Raoul, and his fist, covered with flowing armament haki, swung at Raoul's head. What is this? Shave? No, it isn't. It's pure bodily explosion. This guy jumped from hundreds of meters high. Not only didn't he unload the force but converted the descending force into a stronger thrust with his legs. How can there be such a madman? His legs are fine? This speed is indeed faster than the wind, leaving Raoul no time to turn into wind and dodge. Hurricane shield. Raoul could only choose to block, crossing his arms, forming a huge wind shield to block Figo's punch. Accompanied by another thunderous crash, the ground beneath them exploded like a volcano again. Figo's attacking arm sleeve shattered, while Raoul's hurricane shield was instantly smashed. His body flew backward, tumbling and bouncing on the ground, finally turning into wind and scattering. He reformed in mid-air, wiping the blood from his mouth, looking severe. Figo glanced at his shattered sleeve, then tore off his upper garment, revealing a sharply defined, muscular upper body. Physique, 135,880. Level 6, Pinnacle Physique. The term pinnacle is as straightforward as it gets. This means that in the world of pirates, encompassing all humans, other species, and various monsters, Figo's physique has now reached the highest echelon. Become a patron to read chapters ahead of public release and support me winking face. Chapter 37. Capturing an Admiral. The brief clash shattered Raoul's arrogance, and the aching sensation in his arms continuously warned him. Is this monstrous body the reason you defy the 5 elders? It seems I need to give you a lesson to wake you up. Strong force is the only way to make fools listen calmly, Figo retorted, extending his right hand and beckoning Raoul with a finger. All right, enough talk. If you're not planning to run, come on, let's continue. Arrogant. Raoul's eyes sharpened, and as he crossed his arms before his chest, a gentle breeze stirred, gathering countless tiny azure wind blades in front of him. With a forward sweep of his arms, the wind blades surged toward Figo, blanketing the sky. However, Figo walked toward Raoul through the wind blades, accelerating with each step. He extended his hands, fists half clenched, preparing to flick his fingers. Then, he began flicking rapidly. Flying finger gun flick. One after another, black, armament haki-covered energy bullets shot from Figo's fingers, colliding with the incoming wind blades, both vanishing on contact. Figo's flicking speed increased, and soon he was flicking with all 4 fingers. Flying finger gun scattershot. The dense black bullets quickly devoured the azure wind blades and continued towards Raoul, riddling him with holes. But it had no effect. Armament haki could indeed hit Logia users, but only if it made actual contact. Using his observation haki, Raoul preemptively turned any part of his body that could be hit into intangible wind. The attack seemed to hit, but it actually missed, rendering it ineffective. Instead, Raoul also charged towards Figo, bringing a tempestuous whirlwind that tore up the ground in front of Figo, sending debris and sand his way. Blinded by the sand, Figo halted, closing his eyes and relying on observation haki to sense Raoul's position. When Raoul was at the right distance, Figo's right leg whipped around, coated in flowing armament haki, slicing through Raoul's wind form body. Whoosh! Raoul split in 2, with his lower half dispersing and his upper half swirling and shifting, instantly moving behind Figo. His right arm transformed into a wind drill, piercing Figo's back, twisting his muscles and aiming for internal damage. You can't hit the wind. You can't hurt me. Figo's right arm swung backward with explosive force. Boom! Raoul was sent flying again, but simultaneously, a terrifying tornado erupted under Figo, hundreds of meters wide and nearly a kilometer high, lifting Figo skyward. The high-speed tornado restricted Figo's movements, trapping him in a spinning vortex. Raoul bounced a few times on the ground before coming to a stop. He knelt and then shot upward, his hands clasped above his head. He spun his entire body into a massive wind spear, bringing an overwhelming force. Within the tornado, Figo clenched his right fist. The structure and density of the muscles in his right arm changed rapidly, swelling to an enormous, disproportionate size, twice as thick. Simultaneously, Figo's weight increased rapidly, defying science to release a hidden energy within him, pushing his weight from under 500 pounds to nearly 500 kilograms. The increased weight might slow his speed slightly, but it brought even greater strength and stability, and the massively swollen arm seemed capable of shattering anything. Life Return War God's arm. Boom! The twice as large fist collided with the tip of Raoul's wind spear, instantly shattering the surrounding tornado into countless azure streaks of light scattering far and wide. At the center of the collision, the blue firelight was dazzlingly bright. Boom boom boom! Impel Down was understandably shaking not far from the battlefield, appearing on the verge of collapse. At the exit of the zero-level platform, Deputy Warden Rupp lay on the ground, trembling as he held a den mushi in his hands. Impel Down is collapsing. Impel Down is collapsing. 5 elders, please send a ship to get us out. We'll be drowned by the sea or eaten by sea kings. Shut up! Mendispin's angry voice came through the den mushi. Impel Down was reinforced with the highest specifications when it was built to withstand multiple attacks from the strongest pirates at sea. As long as they aren't deliberately attacking, Impel Down will not collapse. Rupp, I'm asking you about the battle situation. Go and see. We really won't collapse. Reluctantly, Rupp got up, his expression suddenly frozen. How is it? Does Gaston Figo really have the power to stand against Raoul? Rupp mumbled, 5 elders, the sky is splitting. High above, thick clouds were completely torn in half by force, making the azure sky look like it had a deep chasm. In the Holy Land Marie Joyce, Mendispin turned his gaze out the window, seeing the anomaly in the distant sky, his face darkened completely. After a moment of silence, he picked up another den mushi and dialed, Mocha, mobilize a ship immediately. 5 elders, there's no more noise. The battle seems to be over. The sea is flowing back. Rup's voice came through, halting Mendisbin's words. It's over? No matter who won or lost, the battle shouldn't end so quickly. The sea is flowing back? Realizing this, Mendisbin's heart sank. Not good. In a fair fight, it would take us more than a day and a night to determine a winner, but I don't have that much time. Figo pinned Raoul against Impel Down's slightly cracked outer wall, saying to the powerless Raoul, you're not wronged. Without the wind fruit, you wouldn't stand a chance against me. Enjoying the power granted by the fruit also means accepting its drawbacks. Besides, I was just a hard-working little boss back then. You, a warden who did nothing, have the nerve to judge? You didn't even remember that Impel Down's walls are reinforced with sea stone to prevent Sea King invasions. If I dared to smash you here, you should have known better than to hit the wall. Raoul's eyes burned with anger. Despicable bastard. I was too captivated by his reckless behavior and became careless. Damn it. Worried about the seawater pouring in after the collision broke the wind wall, he didn't think about the sea stone in Impel Down's outer walls and fell into this embarrassing situation, halting the battle that had just begun. What do you want, Figo? You're going to stay in Impel Down for a couple of days. Let's see if that fool will talk to me calmly. Yes, that's right, you're a hostage. Bastard, where is your sense of justice? The roaring sea waves drowned out Raoul's last angry shout, making him lose strength as seawater flooded his mouth. Winning means lecturing. Losing means talking about justice. Obedient justice is still justice? Figo chuckled, pulling Raoul up to the surface. Chapter 38. Incident and Debate. Prisoner, Raoul. Level, SSR 4. Status, incarcerated. Crime Index, 37. Capture participation, 100%. Selectable gains, navigation, theft, swordsmanship, swordsmithing, business. Personal Event 1, to be activated. Personal Event 2, temporarily unavailable. Core Event, temporarily unavailable. Choosing the gain for swordsmanship, gains, swordsmanship plus 2,960. 77,650, level 4 sword master. Quite the jack of all trades with swordsmithing and swordsmanship. Why did he give up the sword and focus solely on honing his devil fruit abilities? Figo thought, glancing at the unconscious Raoul, bound in sea stone handcuffs in his cell. Figo flicked a chi bullet from his fingers. Wake up. The chi bullet hit Raoul in the stomach, causing him to cough up several mouthfuls of seawater. Raoul weakly struggled against the chains as his blurry vision cleared, managing to sit up. In the moment he lost consciousness, he understood what his situation would be like when he woke up. He displayed a certain Admiral's demeanor, not wasting energy on futile shouting or cursing. He glanced at Figo through the bars, then looked towards the adjacent cell where the old man was. The old man, with a radiant complexion, praised Figo, sending out the force of finger gun. Hey? I don't recall teaching you that move. Did you develop it yourself? Ha ha ha, not bad, not bad. Back in the elite class, Figo, you excelled in the 6 powers. It seems you haven't stopped training over the years, making the 6 powers even stronger. I'm confident in you, Doug. Learning well, but didn't master anything? Figo laughed wryly. Raoul's gaze lingered on Doug's unbound hands and feet. Are you deliberately cooperating with Gaston Figo? Vice Admiral Doug, do you realize what you're doing? The old man raised his head, not looking directly at Raoul. What, even our 4th Admiral is locked up, and still has the nerve to lecture me. Figo indeed defeated Raoul, and Doug was grinning uncontrollably. Raoul, feeling awkward, had no way to deal with the old senior, so he coldly looked away, seeing Kimchi approaching from a distance. He then said, Kimchi, are you joining them in rebellion? He used the word rebellion. Kimchi's expression turned unnatural. When Raoul served as warden, Kimchi was his deputy and admired Raoul's strength. He never imagined that after 14 years, Raoul would become a prisoner in Impel Down. But a year as superior and subordinate couldn't compare to 15 years with Figo. Even though Kimchi coveted the warden position, he ultimately chose to support Figo. He avoided Raoul's gaze and addressed Figo, I've already informed all the guards about the general situation from the monitoring room. Capturing Doug went quietly, but the tremors from the recent battle couldn't be hidden from the guards and prisoners in Impel Down. Without an explanation, it would certainly cause panic. As for the guards' reaction, Kimchi didn't need to say, the faint shouts from afar already explained everything. The warden is indeed the strongest. So what about an admiral? He's no match for our great warden. If the warden chose to defy the world government's orders, then there must be something wrong with the orders. The warden is the best. Doug laughed heartily. Raoul, however, couldn't believe what he heard. Weren't most of these guards from Marine headquarters? I am an admiral. How dare Figo tell them the truth? Now that they know the truth, why are they going mad with Figo? How dare they question the world government's orders? Has the entire Impel Down gone mad? Figo crouched in front of Raoul, shaking his head with a smile. These guards in Impel Down, though ruthless and cruel when punishing prisoners, were relatively simple and endearing due to their long isolation from the outside world. This trust is heavy. So next, is waiting. Raoul, doubting his life, remained silent. With a glowing face, Doug continued to cheer, while Figo listened with a headache, randomly activating Doug and Raoul's personal events to watch the animation. Personal Event 1, activated 10 years ago, Vice Admiral Doug's son and daughter-in-law were killed by Helman Rebris while aboard a naval ship, leaving behind only their 2-year-old son, Kong. Following this blow, Vice Admiral Doug's memory began to decline, and his health gradually deteriorated. Devastated, he never spoke of revenge. As one of the New World's two extremes, the Hell Pirates are extremely powerful, requiring at least 2 admirals to have a higher chance of defeating them, involving significant risks. Vice Admiral Doug was unwilling to start a large-scale war in the New World for personal revenge. Event requirement: capture or kill Rebris and dismantle the Hell Pirates. The animation was brief, with a substantial text introduction. Pretty difficult. This is like dismantling a Yonko crew and killing a Yonko, right? No wonder I only saw Kong and not his parents when I visited the old man's house, and it's a good thing I didn't ask. The old man is carrying a burden in his heart. Although it's challenging, it is possible to complete. Raoul's personal event is unsolvable. Event requirement: help Raoul defeat or capture Gaston Figo. Meanwhile, the impact of Figo defeating and capturing Raoul spread quickly. Only high-ranking officials of Vice Admiral level and above in Marine headquarters received the news. Although this wasn't the first time they heard of Figo, none of them expected that Figo, who rejected a Vice Admiral promotion and chose to return to Impel Down as warden, would become an admiral so quietly. Most was dumbfounded. Vice Admiral Mia, though happy, was worried about Doug and Figo's situation, so she went to find Fleet Admiral Oa. Oa kept dialing the 5 elders Den Den Mushi, his expression not stern but rather somewhat relieved and relaxed, calming Mia. In the Holy Land Marie Joys, the 5 elders gathered once more. Mendispin concisely explained the cause and process of the incident, angrily slamming the table. This is an unprecedented malicious incident that must be severely punished. I hope we can mobilize a general from the Divine Army along with Mocha to capture him. The Divine Army is a special unit directly under the 5 elders, consisting of elite members of the Celestial Dragons. It is the 4th military force outside the 3 forces managed by the world government's supreme commander. As the highest authority of the world government, the 5 elders don't all need to possess the highest combat power, but they can't be completely without it either. In every generation of the 5 elders, at least one must possess the strength to stand at the pinnacle of the world of pirates. This person, in their youth, mostly served as a general in the Divine Army. They are as strong, if not stronger than most Marine admirals, serving as one of the reasons the Celestial Dragons have maintained their dominance for 700 years. Upon hearing Mendispin's suggestion, the other 4 elders disagreed. Do we really need to deploy the Divine Army? Can't the Navy handle this? Are we going to disturb Lord Imu? Mendispin, you oversee the Navy, Nis Lobby, and Impel Down, all 3 direct military branches of the world government. This incident is a significant failure, and you bear the responsibility. This is not the time to discuss blame. Gaston Figo openly defied the orders of the 5 elders, a first in our tenure. If we don't resolve this decisively, regardless of the method, he directly defeated a top Marine combatant. How do we resolve this decisively? If we deploy the Divine Army and fail, the world government's authority will plummet. A fierce argument erupted among the 5, with Mendispin inwardly cursing the other 4 countless times. After a lengthy dispute with no resolution, they finally connected to Fleet Admiral Oa, who had been persistently calling, to hear his thoughts. Oa only said 3 things. 5 elders, Figo is a righteous marine who grew up in marine headquarters with the potential to become an admiral. No, he already has more than potential. Are we letting internal conflict become a joke for the world to see? You should also know, Figo often swims out 50 to 100 miles from Impel Down to capture sea kings. He possesses exceptional swimming ability and a formidable physique. Even if all 3 of us admirals mobilize, we might not capture him and might instead push him toward piracy. No, he won't become a pirate. The incident stems from the revolutionary blind witch. I don't need to repeat that girl's story. Figo's demands haven't lost their righteousness. Are you not worried about Figo defecting to join the revolutionary army, uniting with that girl, and genuinely threatening the world government with an upheaval? Unclear which part worked, but the debate finally ended. The 5 elders reached a solution for the incident and handed it to Oa to execute. Mendispin went back and smashed his desk. Chapter 39. Intermission. In the evening, Marine Admiral Oa arrived at Impel Down on a Navy ship for the first time. Figo was there to welcome him, and it was the second time he had seen this short old man, standing only 1.6 meters tall, who did not possess the imposing presence of a Grand Admiral. Like Doug, the 7 years had left significant marks on Oa, with deep wrinkles on his old face that could easily trap mosquitoes. So, are you waiting here to throw me into prison too? Oa asked, still wearing a stern face. I wouldn't dare, Figo replied. I'm sorry for the trouble, Admiral. Oa looked up at Figo, his stern face suddenly softening into a smile. It's no trouble at all. You've done very well, Figo. Raoul did not grow in the direction I expected, which was quite disappointing, but you showed up. The Navy cannot be filled entirely with people like you, but it absolutely cannot lack people like you. Someone needs to uphold the baseline of justice. You're too kind, Figo replied, understanding that the outcome of this incident would likely not be unfavorable. Accompanying Oa into Impel Down, Oa emphasized, the Revolutionary Army must be dismantled. I understand, Figo replied. Oa nodded. According to my information, the Revolutionary Army's Saintess, Sapphire, probably just wants to rescue those who might suffer fates similar to hers. But among those she rescued, many had previously been pirates and would not be content merely being selfless rescuers. The Revolutionary Army's formation was sudden, and I suspect Sapphire might have been somewhat passively pushed into the leader's position. So, no matter what, we can't let the Revolutionary Army continue to develop like this. I know, Figo acknowledged. I had anticipated this possibility, and I proposed to the 5 elders that I take over from Admiral Doug in leading the suppression of the Revolutionary Army rather than leaving it unchecked. That won't work, Oa shook his head. The 5 elders' final bottom line is that you cannot go. Figo was taken aback. This is the 5 elders' last stand. You've shown too strong a stance on the matters involving Gerald and Sapphire. The 5 elders worry that if you lead the suppression, it could lead to even more uncontrollable problems. In simple terms, they fear you might not only fail to suppress the Revolutionary Army but also join them. Facing Figo, Oa spoke plainly. I believe you wouldn't do that, but the 5 elders are unwilling to trust that. Not fully addressing your demands in resolving this incident is also the 5 elders' way of saving face. So now, cancel the public execution of Gerald and continue his imprisonment in Impel Down. Remove Doug from leading the Revolutionary Army's suppression and transfer it to the world government's CP0. And you, until your term as warden ends in 3 years, are not allowed to leave Impel Down freely. Figo furrowed his brow. He had wanted to take over the task of suppressing the Revolutionary Army because he could use Gerald's character event 2 to locate Sapphire. Regardless of where Sapphire was in the world, Figo could find her. At that point, he would have ample time to discern the specifics of the Revolutionary Army and ensure that all parties received a reasonable and favorable outcome. But now, what, are you really thinking of leaving the Navy? Oa asked. I've been the Marine Admiral for nearly 30 years, often forced by the 5 elders to make concessions. Sometimes I even thought about resigning and walking away, but in the end, I persisted day by day because as long as I'm in office, even if I achieve something in just one incident or help one or a few people, it's all worth it. That's my justice. What about yours, Figo? Figo shook his head without answering. A native of the pirate world like Oa wouldn't understand Figo's mindset. The world government's supreme authority and the 5 elders' highest position were ingrained, so Oa dared only to resist, not defy. But as a transmigrator, Figo lacked this reverence. Seeing mistakes, why not resist them? Seeing Figo's thoughts, Oa was somewhat worried and sighed. No wonder you can do things I've never done. You have more persistence and courage than I imagined. I just hope you hold on to your sense of justice and at least won't use your power for evil, Figo. Don't worry, I won't. But it's not so severe. Oa paused. CP0 is only good at behind enemy lines work and intelligence gathering. They have no means against a fully grown Sapphire. Even if they finally locate the Revolutionary Army, they still need the Navy for the operation. When the time comes, I will inform you of the situation. How to decide and act will be up to you. Whether to leave Impel Down to fulfill your justice or not will be your choice. This might be my last rebellion against the 5 elders and the celestial dragons during my tenure as Admiral. It will rely on you to complete it. You won't disappoint me. You will handle everything well, won't you, Figo? Rest assured, I will. Figo hesitated momentarily before smiling. All right, I'll wait here for your news then. Oa's old face creased into a smile. And don't worry, I won't disappoint you either. Oa took Doug and Raoul away. Feeling perplexed about why he didn't get the warden position again, Kimchi-I announced the end of the incident in the control room. The wardens cheered and celebrated the great Figo warden. Impel Down gradually returned to its calm, as if nothing had happened. But Figo knew this was just an intermission. After a hearty meal in the cafeteria, he descended to the 6th level of Impel Down through the warden's passage. Due to Rawl's earlier impact on the 6th level's outer wall, the disturbance was greatest here, and the villains were unaware of what had happened, even suspecting a jailbreak. Seeing Figo appear, they were very disappointed. Someone shouted, "Who attacked Impel Down? Why hasn't Gerald returned? Don't tell me you let someone rescue him." No, there was a little conflict with the world government, fought a Navy Admiral, and now everything's fine, Figo laughed. Thanks for your concern. Hey? The 6th level pirates were stunned, then quickly burst into laughter. Warden Figo, I always knew you weren't a rule-following guy. Want to defect? I can follow you. The other villains were tempted. Yeah, if you defect, I'll follow you too. And me. And me. Ha ha ha, if you become the captain of a pirate crew, we'll immediately become the strongest pirate crew in history. Gaston Figo. Ha ha ha, that would be awesome. Come on, Warden Figo. Figo raised a finger. I need 10 people. The villains were momentarily stunned, then erupted in excitement. Me. Me. I was a navigator. I used to be a shipwright. I'm a sniper. Ha ha ha, this is getting exciting, Captain Figo. What captain? Figo chuckled. I mean, my fight with the Admiral wasn't satisfying. This time I want to fight 10 people. It was as if a mute button was pressed. The noisy room fell silent, and the villains exchanged glances. You go. You go. I'm still injured. You go. Figo laughed softly. Some still had some ferocity. Hearing this laugh, a few got angry and shouted, "Don't be arrogant. I'll go." Figo scanned the room. 5 more. No one responded. After 7 years, they didn't even want to escape when given the chance. In the end, Figo had to throw the keys in front of the 5 responding cells. All right, it's you 5 this time. The 5 were dumbfounded. You cowards, damn it. Hurry up. Figo's voice was like a death sentence. Fear and anger twisted their faces. No, don't come over here. I really don't want to escape. Become a patron to read chapters ahead of public release and support me winking face. Chapter 40. The Buster Call. In the blink of an eye, another 6 months passed. Figo had spent most of his 16th year at Impel Down, and life seemed to have returned to normal after the conflict. Each day, he would discipline prisoners, capture sea kings of various flavors, and continue to develop and perfect his life return technique with his ever-strengthening body. The 5 elder Mendesbin no longer kept him on the phone for hours. Instead, Figo's communication with Admiral Oa increased again. Oa kept Figo informed about the Revolutionary Army's latest situation and the progress of the world government's investigation. The Revolutionary Army had been quiet in the past 6 months, but Sapphire had made 2 moves. Once, she attacked another slave ship. Another time, she seized an opportunity and sank a large ship carrying celestial dragons, killing a father and daughter duo of the celestial dragons. Unlike Figo's midnight raid with few witnesses, Sapphire struck in broad daylight with witnesses, plunging the entire pirate world into a frenzy of shock. The enraged world government dispatched more personnel, frantically searching for her. Figo knew she was close to being found. Sure enough, Figo soon received news through the Den Den Mushi. The headquarters of the Revolutionary Army was located a few days ago. The 5 elders directly bypassed me and ordered the Marine headquarters to launch a buster call. The fleet has already set sail. Figo, if you still intend to go, there is a naval ship waiting for you 50 miles southwest of Impel Down. We will coordinate on the way. All right, I'll head over now. Figo hung up the Den Den Mushi and took off his warden's cloak. He found Kimchi in the training area and said, "Kimchi, I'm going out. Watch over Impel Down. Going to catch another Sea King. Think of it that way. Try to let Ledoux realize later that I haven't returned," Figo said. "Oh, hey." Watching Figo's departing figure, Kimchi dropped a stone block absent-mindedly, nearly crushing his foot. Am I going to be the warden now? Swimming 50 miles was effortless for Figo. He left Impel Down with ease, and within minutes, he saw the naval ship Admiral Oa had mentioned. The ship was familiar, he had boarded it before. "Sister Mia, long time no see." Stepping onto the ship again, Figo greeted the still valiant female Vice Admiral. Quick as always. Mia handed Figo a towel and shouted, "Set sail." The ship moved, heading far away. After Figo wiped the water off his face, Mia said, "The Revolutionary Army's headquarters is on a previously uninhabited island in the New World, now named Witch Island by the world government. The 10 ships of the Buster Call are the finest giant ships from Marine headquarters, very fast. They set out ahead of us, so we must sail at full speed to catch up. The so-called Buster Call is Marine headquarters' most formidable military operation, capable of erasing an island from the map with its firepower. In a Buster Call, 10 top-tier giant ships, 5 vice admirals, dozens of rear admirals, and thousands of elite marines are dispatched. They use the overwhelming firepower of the ships for indiscriminate destruction and then use their superior manpower to slaughter any survivors. It's an annihilation operation against the target. The Buster Call can only be initiated by the Marine Admiral and the 3 admirals. Of course, the 5 elders, who hold even higher authority, can also do so. Launching a Buster Call against the Revolutionary Army didn't surprise Figo too much. What surprised him was another piece of news from Mia. Doug is leading the fleet. Mia shook her head. Originally, Admiral Raoul was leading the operation, but when Doug learned of it, he went to the Admiral and took over the command. Facing a flying Sapphire, sending Raoul would make more sense. The world government shouldn't have agreed to Doug leading the fleet. Figo thought for a moment and shook his head helplessly. What is that stubborn old man planning? The tone made Mia smile. She quickly restrained her smile and handed Figo a Den Den Mushi. For more details, you'll need to contact the Admiral, Figo. Compared to the teacher, you publicly defying the 5 elders' orders this time, won't there be any problems? What do you plan to do? Figo replied, I can only hope the 5 elders give me a break this time. Otherwise, the next time you see me, it'll be my wanted poster. Don't arrest me, okay? Ha ha ha. Mia paused, then said, if we hadn't met by chance that day, if I hadn't invited you to the teacher's house and told you about that matter, it would be the same. I would have heard the stories of Green Gem and Purple Gem later. It's just that I like to meddle. Figo laughed. Mia was silent momentarily, then smiled, you are completely different from when you were in the elite class. You look quite handsome like this. Meanwhile, 10 giant ships were sailing on the Com Belt route. The steel behemoths were spread out in a long line, and heavy cannons extended from both sides of the ships, creating a formidable atmosphere. On one of the central ships, 79-year-old Vice Admiral Doug stood at the bow, hands folded, gazing at the distant horizon, his posture upright. Although he had won the overall command of this Buster Call, the golden Den Den Mushi to officially initiate the operation was not in his possession. He glanced sideways at the neighboring ship where the silver-haired youth from CP0, who held the golden Den Den Mushi, stood. Just then, the Den Den Mushi rang out with an announcement. Attention all ships, we will leave the Com Belt route and enter the New World. We could encounter pirate groups at any time. To prevent the Revolutionary Army and the witch from receiving early warnings and escaping, after encountering pirate groups, once within suitable range, the ships can open fire independently. Leave no survivors. I'll repeat, there's no need for boarding battles, just use the firepower. Doug withdrew his gaze and continued to look at the distant sea, his eyes slightly deepened. A day later, at noon. Revolutionary Army Headquarters, St. Tess Island. Inside a building, Sapphire smiled faintly as she looked at and responded to the children passing by. Good afternoon, St. Tess. St. Tess. St. Tess. I learned 10 words this morning. I learned 12. And I practiced swordsmanship for an hour. I got up at 5 today and trained for 2 hours, you lazybones. You're the lazybones. Everyone is doing great. Sapphire's words were soothing, and the children quickly quieted down. Each of them passed by with bright smiles, and at the end of the line was a 2 or 3-year-old blonde boy with a runny nose. Saint Tess. What's wrong, Jibek? I had a nightmare last night. Sapphire smiled and touched the boy's head, comforting him, it's all right. No need to be afraid. What did you dream about? A big fire, a really big fire, and a big dog made of fire burned our place down. And there was someone running on the sea, the boy mumbled. Fire? Dog? Someone running on the sea? How could anyone run on the sea? It was just a nightmare, don't be afraid, Jibek. As she comforted him, she suddenly froze and turned her head to the southwest, her expression growing serious. At the same time, a voice filled with panic came from afar, St. Tess. St. Tess. Something terrible has happened. Warships. So many warships. The Navy has found us.